Good evening and welcome to Homecoming 2020, unlike any other homecoming we've ever experienced at EKU. I'm Dan McBride, and tonight we are kicking off Homecoming Week with a new feature that we are going to be bringing to our alums all across the country, and it's the EKU Alumni Spotlight Series, where we'll talk with different alums from all across the country and even all across the world who are doing really interesting and great things. We thought this would be a great way to kick off the week. For those of you who are tuning in tonight, we do ask one thing of you, that we would like for you to check in with us so that we know what states are being represented and where some of our alums are tuning in from around this country. So if you will go to homecoming.eku.edu, there is a place at the bottom of the page where you can check in. Obviously, with normal homecoming events, we have people in person who can check in and we get to know who's there. But when we do it virtually, like we're doing this year, we don't always know who is out there and who's watching. So if you go to the check-in page, it'll help us keep in touch with who's watching and have a good idea of who we're connecting with during homecoming week. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different this year, and a lot of folks are sad and disappointed, like me, that we all can't gather together on campus as we would for a normal homecoming. But this also gives us an opportunity for a lot of alums who can't normally participate in homecoming to be a part of the homecoming festivities. So if you're normally a person who lives too far away to travel back to campus, or you work and can't get the time off to come back to campus, we hope that you'll enjoy some of the virtual events that we have planned for you this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Alumni Spotlight Series is kicking off. We've got 3 great shows this week for that series. And then on Wednesday night, we've got a very special feature. It'll be at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night on YouTube. And it's a panel discussion about race relations at EKU over the decades. It's part of the Postcards to Hashtags series that the EKU Library is doing, and it is co-sponsored by the Office of the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and University Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity. And that panel discussion will feature some alums who went through the original civil rights movement while they were students at EKU and around their time at EKU. And it'll also feature some current students and talk about some of their experiences with what's happening in the world today with social justice. So for a complete list of all of the events that are going to be happening this week, we ask that you check the website at homecoming.eku.edu, and it'll give you a complete rundown of all the events. The Alumni Spotlight Series, we're very excited. I want to let you know that tomorrow night we will have Tom Luganbill, who is the recruiting manager for ESPN and also a football analyst for ESPN and a former quarterback for EKU. He will be our guest tomorrow night. We'll talk about the college football season and about Tom's time when he was a student here at EKU. And then on Tuesday night, we have Lee Thomas Miller from Nashville, Tennessee. Lee Thomas is a country music writer. He's written 7 #1 hits. He's also a producer. He's written 19 top 20 hits, and he'll be coming to us from Nashville on Tuesday night. Both of those shows, tomorrow night and Tuesday night, will be at 7 o'clock. The Alumni Spotlight Series, even though it's kicking off this week, we want you to know this is something we're going to continue, and it will go beyond homecoming week. We already have some great guests lined up in November. Deanne Stevens, who is a popular TV and radio personality in the Lexington, Kentucky area. She is going to be with us in November. And also Michelle Cole, who is a costume designer in Hollywood and has designed costumes for such shows as In Living Color and Blackish. And she's an award-winning designer, and she will be with us in November as well. So be watching your emails and watching the EKU alumni page for more information when those shows will be coming up. But tonight we are kicking off Homecoming Week, and we are kicking off the Alumni Spotlight Series with only the 3rd alum to ever hold the office of president at Eastern Kentucky University. We are very excited tonight to have Dr. David McFaddin with us, and I will welcome Dr. McFaddin to the studio now. And we're going to learn a little bit about his life and his journey to where he is now. Good evening, David, and welcome.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you.
Well, first of all, we appreciate you not only being our inaugural guest for the Alumni Spotlight Series, but also for helping us kick off Homecoming Week, because this is much like everything else this year. This is going to be a homecoming that's going to be a little bit different.
Well, I think my presidency has been marked by being different. So we got different down to a science. So.
Yes, we do. Let's touch on that just a little bit. Obviously, it has been a topsy-turvy, crazy ride from the beginning, and There's been challenges from the moment you stepped in the door, even as the interim back in December of last year.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I look back to Dr. Coates, who also was the president here during a pandemic. There were no great notes on how to manage a pandemic, especially in 2020. I will say though that the work that's been done at this institution for the better part of the last 20 years, the investment in technology, the investment in infrastructure, our faculty and the work that they've done, it's students first, and I think that that's what's helped us really weather the storm. We find ourselves here in mid-October. With students still on campus, students still learning, and really barreling toward homecoming. Homecoming unlike any other, but one we're going to enjoy anyway. So.
Well, tonight, one of the things we want to do, and you have officially been in office for a little over 2 months now as the 14th president of EKU, and a lot of alums may not have had the opportunity to meet you. I know you have had the opportunity to meet a lot of our alums because you've been at EKU for a while, but I kind of want to let them get to know you and kind of your journey to where we are now. And I'm going to do it in a kind of a mixed up order. I want to start with your graduation from EKU. After you graduated and got your undergraduate degree, it's always interesting to me to find out what somebody's first job was. So what happened right after you graduated from EKU?
Dana, I was so fortunate, and so many EKU students, I think, will tell this story. But I did an internship for the last year and a half of my time here at Eastern. I enjoyed my time here, but I was only here 3.5 years. I was on a fast track to a career, I think, and had the chance to transition that internship with what was then Bell South into a permanent job. And so when I left here and graduated in December of 1999, I went straight to work for them. I had a job waiting, and had a chance to work for one of my mentors, Amy Scarborough, who's still here in Richmond and still working for now AT&T. So,
talk a little bit about your career at AT&T, because you're kind of like me. You've only had a couple of jobs in your career because you worked at AT&T before, right up until you came to the university, right?
I did. So, interesting, kind of story. My head's a little bit bell-shaped because in my family, we have about 150 years of service, which with the Bell system. And so my grandfather, both of his brothers, my father, a couple of his brothers all worked for the telephone company. That was, good work in Eastern Kentucky. And so they spent their careers working in Appalachia and putting in phone lines and maintaining phone lines. And so when I got out, now I didn't pursue the same career. I went straight into management, working in federal and state and local legislative work, but had a deep tie to the organization. And so it really shaped me. Great organization. They really helped me get my career started. But after about 13 years of being there, Dan, I had a crisis of conscience, I guess, and I really said, what legacy is my work going to leave? And as much as I enjoyed the work and enjoyed the people, and it was a family there, I told many people long about 2010, hey, I'm going to make a career change, and I'm going to move into higher ed. I want to be a university president. And I had a few people look at me and say, "You want to be what?" And so I started my postgraduate doctoral studies. Then I got a call from Dr. Whitlock in 2012. And he said, "Hey, you want to come to the university and work and be a part of the Eastern family in a different way?" Having been on the alumni board and always being around Eastern since 1996, I took that step after nearly 14 years with AT&T at the time. So,
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that in 2010 is kind of when the light came on and you said, "Someday I want to be a university president." And I've always wondered, do kids think about that when they're young? So it kind of happened for you a little bit later.
It did. I think that when you think about the impact you can make on someone's life and leading at the highest level, that's really where my passion for Eastern really connected. It's how do you make a difference? How do you serve this region? How do you serve our alums, the students who are here, our faculty, staff, so many dedicated people who love Eastern. There is no shortage of people who love EKU. But really just dedicating myself to the work, and frankly, Dan, whether it's picking up the ravine and making sure that it's clean and keeping the campus beautiful, or sitting here in coats and trying to lead through a pandemic, whatever the role is I need to play at this institution to make sure that it's here for the next generation, that's what I'm willing to do.
Well, I think, and that's one of the things that the staff and the faculty appreciate about you, and something that some of our alums may not realize. You came to EKU. I know you were at first you worked in legislative affairs and government relations, but you have done a little bit of everything in your time at EKU, and you've even taught classes.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where my passion started back in 2006 as an adjunct teaching in communications. I was teaching sports writing when Greg Stottlemyre took a little break. And so Liz Hanson called me up and said, hey, you want to, I wrote for the Progress, I was the student SID for Carl Park during my time here. And so had a deep passion for sports and sports writing. And so I came back and taught a few classes. In fact, David Miller, who works on staff now, he'll tell you, taught him everything he knows, unless it's wrong, in which case I'll blank Stottlemyre for that. But no, it's, I came back and really had a passion for being on campus and really love being in the classroom. I wish I had a little more time, and hopefully once we get a little more balance, I'll be able to get back in the classroom, but love to teach. But yeah, it's, if you're not in the classroom and connected with the students, I think it's easy to lose your way with the work that's really going on day to day.
Yeah, and even though you started out in government relations, as your career progressed at EKU, you really kind of had an opportunity to have your hands in just about every bit of the university as time went on.
Yeah, so many opportunities. And, when Dr. Whitlock called me back in 2012, he told me, hey, there's this opportunity. You've got great experience that fits this legislative and government work, state and federal, and that could be a great help to EKU as Jim Clark was transitioning out of doing that work after doing it for a long time. And he said, but hey, just a heads up, I'm retiring in May. So he said, so just full disclosure. So, as Mike Benson transitioned in as president, and Mike and I have a wonderful working relationship, he really gave me immense opportunity. And right out of the gate, he said, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, well, when you're no longer sitting in that seat, I would like to sit in it. And he was open and said, hey, I'm going to give you every opportunity possible to do that. And so, yeah, over the last 8 years, I've had a chance to work in everything from budgeting to academic work, to partnering with academic areas, to student services. It's been a quick learning curve. And frankly, for those who have worked in higher ed, the trajectory probably is not normal. But if anything's normal in 2020, maybe it's the abnormal. So,
yeah, that's certainly for sure. Okay, so that kind of brings us to where you are now. Let's go backwards again, and let's talk about how you ended up at EKU as a student. You're a Kentucky native. You're more specifically from an area that we have drawn a lot of students from over the years.
Yeah, I'm from Paintsville, Kentucky. I'm actually from a little community called Thelma. As you were talking about some of the guests a little later in the week, I grew up with a guy named Chris Stapleton, good friend of mine. And so, not had a chance to connect with him as easily over the last 5 or 6 years as the years before, as one can imagine. But
which, by the way, Lee Thomas and Chris have collaborated, and they wrote a song on Chris's last album together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the Kentucky natives connected.
Well, there we go. Well, I'm going to look forward to hopefully catching up there and see how things are going. So, first generation college student. Frankly, I had never been on a college campus. I was accepted to Governor Scholars my junior year of high school, opted not to go. And so at that time, it was Center, it was Northern, I think it was Eastern at the time. And so was going to go to Governor Scholar, opted to spend the summer at home and, just doing what any 17-year-old would do over the summer, not going to school, and probably not the best decision. I was very fortunate to go I went to Johnson Central, where a lot of AP courses, so I graduated with a Commonwealth diploma. I was not an athlete, love sports, but spent most of my time in video production, working on the yearbook, writing for the newspaper, covering some sports. But it just so happens that our superintendent of Model Lab School was a fairly freshly minted teacher from Eastern Kentucky University, a guy named John Williamson, who's an alum of this institution. And he said, hey, where are you going to college? And I said, I really don't know. And so he said, well, I know. And so my college trip came with my high school English teacher making that trip up here. He introduced me to Carl and Shelley Park, introduced me to Doug and Joanne Whitlock. I said, hey, let's make this work. We had a couple of editors of the Eastern Progress, Matt McCarty, Tim Mullins, a couple of guys who had come before me. So yeah, we have a deep tradition of kids coming from Johnson County to this institution, and that's how I ended up here. I looked at a couple of other schools, Center, Transy, UK. Eastern was the right fit for me. So,
and that's interesting. You talk about John Williamson and the irony that now you both have ended up back at the EKU campus and both benefiting the campus greatly.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about him, coming out of Pikeville, coming to EKU, leaving here, going on to be the superintendent of the top school district in Kentucky, Fort Thomas Highlands, going to New York, leading the AP college boards, doing work nationally and in AP in New York for 7 years, and then having the opportunity to bring him back here and really to transform our lab school in ways. For those who who haven't had a chance to see what they're doing there is innovative. It's really amazing work, and I'm excited about it.
So you're at EKU now. You mentioned working for Carl Park. Talk a little bit about what your EKU experience was like.
When I think about my time at Eastern, I can think about so many people and people who have deep ties to this institution. Carl and Shelley were instrumental in me being successful here. Carl giving me a place to work and to be able to grow, personally and professionally. I think about Doug and Joanne. Of course, Joanne worked in Carl's office, so they really helped me adjust, and we're very invested in my college experience. But I'll tell you, Shelley Park made it. There's probably thousands upon thousands of college graduates who owe everything to Shelley Park. She is such a committed individual and really understood the mission of this institution and worked so hard for so many. And so when I think about that, there was just so many people who were invested in that experience. I'll be honest, Dan, I didn't take the time to enjoy college the way I probably should have. I worked every Saturday when there was a home athletic event. I covered those sports. I took 18 hours a semester, and I graduated and almost got out in 3 years. I had to go that extra half a semester. But I was really focused on finishing a degree and starting a career. And if I look back and have a regret, I wish I'd have been more involved in some student life activities. I roomed with my high school best friend and the best man at my wedding. We lived in Keene Hall, and we went fishing every now and then. That back then, South Campus was not what it is now. But so.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a lot of similarities in your path and my path. We both, came in, and I was here 4 years. It did take me full 4 years, but I was in and out in 4 years. And I think now it takes most students a little bit longer. But we both also went through the mass communications department at EKU, and there were some extremely, extremely effective teachers in that department.
Well, Dan, I'm glad you said that. I talk about some folks who were invested, but I will tell you that the Ron Wolfs, and what a loss for us to lose Ron this past year. But I think about Dean Cannon and Farrell Wellman and so many Liz Hanson and Libby Frost, just so many amazing faculty members who invested in me. And I joke all of the time. My freshman advisor when I got here was a guy named Malcolm Frisbee. Now, I don't know if that makes Malcolm feel, I don't know how that makes Malcolm feel. I'll let you ask him. But I just remember, showing up here and thinking, wow, what an amazing experience. And I met so many people who have invested in me. And that's really what Eastern's all about. That's the Eastern experience.
Yeah, and you mentioned, of course, losing Ron and Dean Cannon. Of course, we lost him several years ago. But the thing that I love about it, and you have experienced the same thing, is after graduation, the switch comes from teacher and mentors to friends. And these are professional colleagues who really help you in your career.
Absolutely. Farrell's still around, and, I reach out to him every now and then. I think about Doug, and Doug continues to be a confidant and a great mentor. And, whenever he's not stranded on a cruise ship, he's always available. So. All
right. So we've talked now about your early days and your Eastern days and after Eastern. Let's talk a little bit about what it's been like now in this job. You started as the interim last December, and obviously being an interim is always a difficult thing. But it was even more difficult beginning last March. And I think those who have been involved in the presidential search, you went through about the toughest job interview that anybody could go through for this position.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that as I had a chance to talk to board members and other folks along the way. It definitely was a different experience, but I think, or at least I hope, Dan, for those who were here on campus and those who had a chance to be a part of the last 10 months or so, or at least the 8 months leading up to the board's decision to call off the search, that I didn't behave in a way that would be normal to an interim assignment. We had a lot of work to do. We had a lot of tough decisions to make, and I think we did our best to make them in a way that put the institution's long-term health first. And it prioritized the student experience. It prioritized our faculty and our staff, and really was focused on the people, because without the people, Eastern is not Eastern. So.
Yeah, in March, the pandemic hit, and I think it kind of threw the entire world into chaos, and it hasn't even gotten back to normal yet. But I think the plan and the response from the leadership team and getting school open at the beginning of the semester, I mean, I don't want to jinx this, but I think it's gone about as well as we could have hoped for.
Well, as I, kind of watch the COVID tracker every day and kind of, cross my fingers, really it's predicated on good decision-making, Dan. And I think that if there's one thing that this group of students who are here at Eastern now, whether they're freshmen or seniors, they're going to probably the most personal growth they're going to have is probably happened in the last 8 or 9 months, making good decisions, putting others first. I think those are skills that are going to help them be effective and successful when they leave this institution and go out to pursue whatever it is they want to chase and their dreams and hopes. But in thinking about that, Dan, I think that we have managed this pretty well. And as we look at it, it's because of a lot of hard work of some very dedicated people. This was a summer unlike most. Nobody was taking vacations and kind of relaxing. It was all hands on deck, and everyone was committed to us getting students back here and learning to live with this virus, but doing so in a very responsible way.
Yeah, and I think that obviously the results have borne out, and there are a lot of schools who have had to shut back down after opening up and had to do things. And you said it, but I think a lot of the credit also goes to our students because they have accepted the challenge, and they've, for the most part, and there's going to be exceptions to everything, but they've handled themselves pretty responsibly.
Yeah, I think so. And they've just, we got to stay the course. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. And if we can make it there, we can breathe a little bit. And we'll see what those 6 weeks between Thanksgiving and New Year's kind of hold. So,
yeah. And let's talk a little bit about, and this is a year when you certainly don't do a lot of planning, but the semester has been a little bit different. Everything's going to shut down at Thanksgiving, and we're going to be closed for a while and just kind of see where we are. But school will re-up again in January.
Yeah, that's correct. We're scheduled to come back the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. We will not have a spring break, and I know that's come at some kind of bemoaning of students and maybe even some alums, because I know the spring break probably holds some near and dear memories for some folks. But we are going to sprinkle. We're calling it the sprinkler effect. So we're going to sprinkle those 5 days throughout the semester. Try to target at least Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, just to give folks kind of a breather to catch their breath. If somebody needs to get caught up on something, we can make that happen. But scheduled to wrap everything up early in May. So.
Yeah, talk about, there's a lot of good things going on. I don't want to dwell on the COVID thing because there are a lot of good things and a lot of exciting things that have been going on since you moved into the office of president, and a lot of things we can be proud of. You mentioned Model earlier, the fact that Model now has a stable mechanism for funding and is going to be open. I went to Model, and even when I was in school, they were talking about Model closing. And now, once and for all, hopefully that's a discussion that's not going to be around much anymore.
It's because of the pandemic and everything that happened, Dan, we really weren't able to celebrate the fact that the first time since 1906, we have established a funding mechanism for our lab school, the only lab school in Kentucky, and really given a very bright future for, and the success of Model graduates have been immense. I see, Dr. Rowlett posted on the chat here, and we got a lot of folks who are connected to Model Lab and connected to EKU. And we're really excited that the lab school continues to serve and is going to evolve and be a change agent really for education in Kentucky and hopefully across the nation. But I think there's a lot of other successes. We think about the Eastern Advantage. We've restructured our scholarship portfolio. We offered a housing scholarship for students who had need-based aid this year. We dropped we went to test optional for enrollment this year. I look at what Dr. Wasson is doing with her team. We're doing a lot of innovative things. We held the line on not only tuition this year, but also housing and dining. We were the only school in Kentucky that prioritized affordability in that way and said, we're not going to raise the cost on our students 1 cent year over year. And so we were very committed to that work. And no, I think there's a lot to celebrate. When I stepped into this position back in January, we were looking at about an 8% reduction in enrollment year over year. The pandemic throws even more uncertainty into that mix, and we ended up landing about 1.6% down. So we really covered a lot of ground, did a lot of work, and had an outstanding freshman class, and retained a lot, and had a retention rate that was the highest in the institution's history for our freshman cohort. So,
the last few years on campus have been pretty interesting because there's always been construction going on, so many different things happening. And one of the most disappointing things for me personally about the pandemic is we've got some of these projects that have finished, the new rec center, the Powell renovation, some other things, and we're not able to fully enjoy them with everyone that we'd like to enjoy them with.
Yeah, it is. I think that, we had a pretty ambitious plan for kind of a rebuild of campus, completing nearly $300 million worth of projects. Those projects are nearly all done. Once the pedway is finished across the Robert R. Martin bypass, we will kind of wrap up that construction phase. And yeah, we've just not had a chance to cut the ribbon on that and really enjoy it and celebrate the hard work of so many people. I am hopeful we get there, but those facilities will have been open for maybe a year or more by the time we're able to bring a group together. So.
Well, one of the things that alums who are watching probably haven't had the opportunity to see yet, and it's really created a nice center of campus or student activity with the new rec center going up, the renovated Powell, the new dining hall, all kind of right there around the meditation chapel. That really has kind of become the heartbeat of the campus.
It really has. And I mean, for those who haven't been on campus, it is a transformation to see Case Hall gone and now Case Dining be there, to see the renovated Powell. When you go in Powell, it still strikes me because, I rewind to the mid 90s. That's the Powell that I remember. And we really look at that. Once we're able to do something with the Wallace building, which is kind of the other key component on that corner, we will have truly transformed that center of campus. It's very pedestrian friendly. And we're really excited about that. Of course, it makes, some premium real estate at McGregor Hall and a few other places that were always premium real estate, but even more so now. And we're going to be doing a little investment in that facility this coming summer. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people will ask me a lot. And I think for the most part, we're going to slow down a little bit for a while because there's been so much construction. But are there any other projects that you'd like to see done or that are coming up?
Dan, I think in looking at it, we're looking at creative ways to do that. We'll be cutting the ribbon on Kit Carson Commons, which is a partnership between EKU and Kentucky River Foothills, which is a priority housing facility for veterans and single parents. It's kind of really Scholar House 2.0 in some ways, but this one has a workforce twist to it. So our EKU workforce folks will be in there doing training every day, not just for the residents of the facility, but also for others in the community who are looking for OSHA certifications or first line manager certifications or Excel certifications. So we'll be doing a lot of that work to try to skill up and support not only degree-seeking students, we do that on campus, but this is really targeted at those who are looking for credentials to go out and really kind of better themselves in the workplace where a specific certificate or credential can help them to be successful. Obviously we're finishing the pedway project over the bypass. I will tell you, I think that as we look across campus, we've got to figure out what to do with the Moore building. That's a project that we're kind of kicking around. there's a lot of deferred maintenance to do on campus still. We largely still have a campus that was built in the 60s. Some built before that. And so those buildings need some tender love and care. And so we continue to invest in those. We've talked a lot about academic space. We continue to see opportunities to invest in spaces like the Combs building and the library. And we just opened the new faculty training center in the library. And so I think there's a lot of good things going on there. Alumni Coliseum is on my list of areas where it's both an athletic space, an instructional space, a student recreation space. And so that's a space that's going to need some attention eventually as we think about it. Opening 1960. It's now 60 years into its tenure of serving us well. It's a beautiful facility, but going to need a little bit of attention over the next coming years.
I want to change tune just a little bit here for a minute. You've mentioned some of your mentors, but talk a little bit about some of those mentors and some of the people who have really shaped your life to get you to where you are today.
As I think about it, like any of us who, I'll be married 20 years next year. So the person who keeps me grounded is my wife, who's also an alum, Melissa. And, the kids, I joked, I thought about doing this at home, and she said, well, if it's going to be you, then you better go to the office, because otherwise it's going to be these three kids taking over the interview. But no, in thinking about that, I look to, those who are, a part of our life in a way that really, transforms us. And so when I think about those who have made so many investments in me, I mean, I mentioned, Doug and Joanne, I mentioned Carl and Shelley, and, I think about my parents. I'm a first generation college student, and while neither of my parents have a college degree, they set the expectation that if you work hard, good things happen. And so, I never lose sight of that. I think about, I mentioned Amy Scarborough earlier and John Williamson. There's so many people. And I think for all of us, if we look at our life, if you don't have mentors in your life, if you don't have those people who you can lean on in your weakest moments, who are going to invest in you because they know that you're going to make the world a better place, because that's the legacy they leave, then I think that you're missing something. So if you don't have mentors out there, you need to find them. And, that's something that I pride myself on. As I think about, moving along in my career, I look for the opportunity to find young professionals and individuals who want to move into leading and doing work in this space who I can build into, because, none of us are promised tomorrow. And my hope is that, the next great leader, the next great leaders are here on this campus and are being developed and being invested in and are growing every day because of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, well, and I have to be honest, that was a little bit of a setup question, because we have a little bit of a surprise for you, and this is unbeknownst to you. But I mentioned earlier that you are only the third alum to ever hold the office of president at EKU, obviously Dr. Martin being the first and Doug Whitlock being the second. And so as a little surprise tonight for you, we have invited number two on that list, Doug Whitlock, to join us for a minute and chat with us. So good evening tonight to Doug Whitlock, and welcome to the show.
My good friend number 12.
That's right. How are you, Dan? And good to see you, David.
Good
David,
to see
I
you,
want
Doug.
to thank you for making me look so smart. There's one name that hasn't been mentioned tonight, and he really was largely responsible for me seeking you out, and that's Steve Fulkerson, and also another Eastern graduate, another first generation student who is currently the Chief Information Officer for the University of Arkansas system. And when Jim Clark was getting ready to step away, and we were talking about somebody to fill those shoes, Steve said, "Well, you know David McFaddin, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I know David. I like David. Known David for a long time. He worked in the same office with Joanne for a while." And so it turned out well. And you're right, Dan. There have been three of us. All three of us were first generation students. Bob Martin from first generation, I was first generation, and now David. But David has a distinction that neither Bob Martin or I had. He's the first Eastern president to come from the region whose name we bear. And I think that's significant.
Absolutely. And Dr. Whitlock, talk a little bit about, you said you've known David for a long time, some of the qualities that David has that you think are going to make him a good president.
Well, and I started out wanting to be a journalist. We didn't have a department of communications when I went through school. But what I was preparing to do was to be a communicator. And I think that's one of David's greatest assets. Feedback that I've gotten from a lot of people on the campus during this really challenging time, for which there was no playbook. They valued the openness and transparency of his communications. And I think that's a key thing. You also talked about the interim. And I tried to do this myself. I started out as an interim, and then the board suspended the search. But I think what David McFaddin did that turned the tide, he never acted like he was an interim. He performed the duties of president in an exemplary manner, without any regard to the fact that I may not be here after this is over. He just did the job, and I think I think a lot of people noticed.
Absolutely. And David, obviously it helps when you're coming into this position to have someone like Dr. Whitlock, who, like you said, bears so many similarities to the same path that you've taken to get to this point.
Yeah, I think when you think about leaders and you think about those who are effective, you think about doing it through the people, lifting the people up, and that the work comes on the other side. And I think that's something that Doug set an example for. And, as you think about it, and, Doug, as you stepped into that role, I feel fortunate to step into the role while there's a global pandemic going on. I'm doing so on the heels of, I think a successful run for the institution. There's those periods, those cycles of kind of, things kind of going on the up and kind of things, kind of tailing off. And so our job is to maintain that work. But I know that Dr. Whitlock's time as president was really bringing a lot of folks together, kind of a refocus on the essential Eastern. And I think that was something that really that the institution needed. And right now, our goal is going to be to buckle down and to do the hard work every day and to make sure that we are not just doing those things that are going to serve us today, but those things that are going to serve us long into the future.
Yeah, so I've got two of the three alums on here, and obviously Dr. Martin can't be with us, but Doug probably knew Dr. Martin about as well as anyone. Dr. Whitlock, why don't you give us one good Bob Martin story that we can air that's airable, all right?
When I was of course, Dr. Martin was the president all the way through my baccalaureate and master's work. And I came back from the Army in '68. So the first 8 years of my time as a staff member at Eastern, he was there. But I will never forget my freshman year. We played Western down at Bowling Green. And we wound up going to Claudia Shepherd's, which was that may not be the right name, but it was a fried chicken place on the edge of Bowling Green that had wonderful fried chicken. And I was a freshman, and I was in high cotton. I was at a table with Dr. Martin. He was to my immediate right, and then just to his right was John Vickers, who's another great man in Eastern's history, and Don Feltner and Spider Thurman. And Spider Thurman is not around anymore, but he would be a great topic for one of these sessions, Dan, because he was a remarkable person. So anyway, we were all there enjoying our fried chicken. And Dr. Martin, everybody knows Dr. Martin was a big man. And John Vickers, to his immediate right, was saving this beautifully fried piece of chicken breast for last. And Dr. Martin, with his fork in a deft move, sort of like gigging a frog, said, "John, you don't want that, do you?" And pulled it over to his plate. So I was in the car with Don Feltner, and we talk about mentors. Don Feltner did more for me than anybody that wasn't a member of my family. I would not have done what I did without Don Feltner's help and mentorship. So I'm in the car with Don and Spider, and we're headed back to Richmond, and they were kidding me. They said, "Doug, when Dr. Martin speared that chicken breast off John's plate, you moved your plate as far away from him as you could." And Dr. Martin kept and it used to be up in the Martin room, may still be, an apple. But it was made out of granite. And he picked that up and threw it at me more than once, and I would always catch it, put it back on his desk. But for those of you that knew Dr. Martin, when you got this from him, looking over the top of his glasses, you knew it was time to move on.
Yeah, Doug, I've always wondered, maybe you can answer this question. For a man that in some ways is larger than life, I think that the legend of Bob Martin grows with every year that passes. Why are the doors so small going into that room?
I don't.
It's true.
I don't know, David, but they were small. Now I'm not sure, but what he didn't go use the one at the back of Brock. I think the ladies pretty much use that. One of the things that I regret from a renovation of the Coates building. At one time, all the doorknobs in the Coates building had this beautiful seal of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And when they remodeled the building, they put these sterile modern doorknobs on, all except for the door into that restroom. And I guess it's still there. When I retired, somebody over at the facilities made me a cane. One of these days I might need it, that with one of those doorknobs with the Commonwealth seal on the end of it. So maybe that was misappropriated. I'm not sure.
It's still there, Doug, and the tile has not changed since 1960. So
yeah. But Bob Martin is one of those folks that a lot of people misunderstood him. He had a soft side to him that you would not believe. Another of my great mentors was Hanley Funderburk, and I just wish everybody had an opportunity to know Hanley the way I did. And not everybody. You talked about infrastructure. Hanley Funderburk gets beaten up for lack of supporting technology. He's the guy who put the fiber optic loop all around the campus. So without that, think where we would be. That's what helped. What helped me emphasize e-learning, which I think has paid pretty good dividends.
Well, I'll tell you, Doug, had we not done the work during your tenure and others in growing our e-campus platform, really making sure that we were leading in that space, I think that this virtual learning experience our students had starting in March and even now, we've got a lot more courses in that space than we normally would have. We would just wouldn't have been as successful as we've been. So we owe a lot to Dr. Funderburk and a lot to you as well.
Absolutely. Doug, thank you for taking a few minutes to be with us tonight. We appreciate it.
As good, too. Gave me a chance to tell David how proud I am of him.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it so much.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Whitlock. Doug Whitlock, of course, an EKU alum and a former president of Eastern Kentucky University. We thought it would be nice to have Doug sneak in and chat with us tonight. So we've talked a lot about the past. We've talked a lot about the present, but I want to spend our last few minutes together talking about the future, David. And let's talk a little bit about what your vision is for the university. And I know it's hard to talk about vision in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, but as much as you can, kind of where do you want to see Eastern go as we look to the future?
Well, I think a couple things, Dan. I think first and foremost, you hear from Dr. Whitlock and you hear from others. I think that there is a clear understanding for those who have been a part of EKU that there is something unique and special about being a part of this family. And we can't ever lose that. And whether it's an experience that you have as a residential student living on campus or a commuter or even online, we've got to make sure that relationship continues to be one that is at the forefront of what we do. And that is, our faculty members clearly understanding the mission of this institution and being invested in that student success, and our administrators and our staff supporting that work on a daily basis, and knowing that transformation of what is still 40% of our student body are first in their family to go to college. We still got a lot of work to do to fulfill that mission that was set out in 1906. We can't ever lose sight of that, Dan. We can't ever lose sight of that work, and we can never put ourselves ahead of that work. And I think that, as Dr. Whitlock talked about, not acting like an interim, whether I was the president or not, boy, we had to get it right during a global pandemic. Otherwise, the institution suffers, maybe not just today, but for a long time. And so I think that we can never lose sight of that. But then we've also got to understand, where can we innovate? Where can we invest in our success? Unfortunately, we've seen 20 years of declines in state funding to higher education. We've seen cycles of enrollment growth and enrollment decline. We must be the architects of our own success. We must invest in the things that we can leverage to differentiate Eastern, not only here in Kentucky, but really globally. And then we've got to make sure that we're the best at those things that we do. And so whether it's aviation or forensic science or psychology or education or any number of the other things that we do exceptionally well on this campus, we've got to invest in those things. And it cannot be success through subtraction. That doesn't mean that perhaps there's things that we stop doing or we consider doing less of. We've got to be responsive to the students. We've got to be responsive to the Commonwealth. We've got to be responsive to global, kind of factors that push in on the institution. And so we want to be leading that change, not having that change lead us. And so that's the charge that I give our cabinet every day. We've got innovative thinkers. We've got people who are committed to this institution. They want to be here. They want to be part of this success. And given the number of days given to myself, I think that I got to go more than 19 years to be the longest serving. But I think at 43, I've got a shot to get there. So.
Well, obviously, this is kicking off our homecoming week, and we mentioned at the top of the show, this is going to be a homecoming that's different than any other homecoming that we've experienced. But one thing that will happen that always happens at homecoming, and this isn't going to change, is we're going to have a football game on Saturday. And, of course, a heartbreaking loss this past Saturday, so close to the upset.
Yeah, so I didn't go to Troy. I was supposed to ride down with the athletic director. Went through the whole testing protocol and everything last week. And let me tell you, if you've not had your COVID test lately, I got to give the football team a lot of credit. They're getting tested a couple times a week. Goodness gracious. That's and I've been tested a few times, but I'll tell you, sometimes you get someone who's doing the testing who's a little more aggressive than others. So, it's luck of the draw. But ended up not going down to Troy. Had a couple of things I had to take care of here. I will tell you, with 21 seconds left, I was kicking myself. But it's probably best because, I may have gotten tossed out of the joint. It was a catch. He caught that ball. It was a catch. He made a football move. He recovered it in the end zone. But anyway, I digress. We are playing football. And I will tell you that that we stepped out of the OVC this year and opted out of playing in the spring. We did that for several reasons. One, because we had players who wanted to play and coaches who wanted to coach. And my job is to support our students and to support our employees. And that was first and foremost. Second, it was going to be very difficult to run all 16 Division I sports at the same time. As somebody who's worked in athletics, Dan, you can only imagine what it looks like trying to run all the sports at the same time. And in fact, the OVC has now said that the 7 games they're going to play starting in February are going to be played on Sundays. And so football is going to be played on Sunday. So we wish all those teams the best, but we're going to wrap up our season at least 9 games on November the 21st. We'll be at home this week, obviously, with Central Arkansas. We've had the chance to play Marshall and West Virginia and the Citadel, and what a great win at the Citadel and a great experience there. Almost pulled off a huge upset against Troy. Looking forward to bringing Central Arkansas in this week. But we're going to end up with Western Carolina, and that's going to be a great opportunity for us to do several things. One, to wrap up our season at home, and to do so, hopefully, to kind of really celebrate all of the hard work of the student athletes and the coaches, and really playing when playing didn't seem like it was going to be possible. Second is that's going to be really a bowl game for us, and we're going to have a chance to celebrate Dr. Sheila Presley. That Western Carolina was her alma mater, and so we've been working with her husband Mark, and going to be a great chance to recognize her and really celebrate her life and the impact that she had on our campus. And so really we're looking forward to wrapping up this season. Glad that we've got this far. I commend the student athletes, the coaches. We get tested twice a week. They're doing the things that they need to do for us to compete week in and week out. They're doing it on the field. They're doing it off the field. They're making good decisions every day. And frankly, they've been great role models for what needs to happen. When we got things kicked off, I'll be honest, back in July, we brought players back to campus. Had we not done that, I do not think we would have been prepared to manage some of the things that COVID brought on August the 17th when the student body came. The athletes allowed us to really learn, to grow, to build protocols that have allowed us to keep the campus open and functioning up to this point in time.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, when I heard about the plot to break away from the OVC and to play in the fall, and I thought, this is crazy, what are we doing? And now into it and looking, and I'm thinking, what a brilliant decision. I mean, the thought of us playing football on a Sunday afternoon in the middle of February is crazy to me. I just think, looking back on it, we absolutely made the right choice, and I'm excited that we're going to have football Saturday for homecoming, and at least one part of homecoming is going to feel as much normal as we can. And we're also going to crown a king and queen at the game on Saturday, and that's part of the homecoming tradition as well.
Absolutely. We're very proud of Coach Wells, the team, and the work they're doing. And listen, we've heard from the other teams, and so they're very happy that the football, while football represents one of 16 sports, the number of athletes there represent nearly a third of all student athletes on campus. And so it's going to allow us to focus on those winter and spring sports for them to truly have a season and to do it the right way. Really excited about softball and volleyball and soccer, men's and women's basketball. Our cross country team maybe going to get a chance to run for an OVC championship sometime before the end of this year. But we've just got, a lot of great things to look forward to. And yes, we are playing football, and we're going to have a homecoming. And if you can get a ticket, come out to Roy Kids Stadium and join us. So it's going to be fun.
Excellent. Dr. McFaddin, we're just about out of time. I really, really want to thank you for helping us not only kick off the Alumni Spotlight Series, but also for kicking off homecoming week with us. We're looking forward to a great week. And even though a lot of it's going to be virtual, we're still going to celebrate homecoming like EKU does every year.
Well, Dan, I appreciate it so much. We all know you're the eternal colonel, but the work that you and Steve and the whole team do over in the alumni office to serve our alumni, to make sure that homecoming is second to none is amazing work. And just so thankful to have a great team who's providing an amazing virtual opportunity for our alums this week to connect. And there were a lot of things we were hoping to do this week that, we look forward to getting folks on campus just as soon as possible. And so maybe if we can get into the spring, there may be a chance for folks to come. But campus looks as good as it's ever looked. It is the campus beautiful, and it is unfortunate that everyone can't come together and really celebrate with us this week. But we are very hopeful that this time next year we will all be gathering together. So.
Amen to that. Thank you again, Dr. McFaddin, the 14th president of Eastern Kentucky University. We appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. I do want to remind everyone, if you are tuned in tonight, please go to the homecoming.eku.edu page and check in. Let us know where you are and let us know that you tuned in to be part of our homecoming discussion tonight, our Alumni Spotlight Series. I also want to remind you of a couple other things coming up. We have 2 other Alumni Spotlight Series features coming up. Tomorrow night, we will talk with ESPN football analyst Tom Luganbill, former EKU quarterback. That'll be at 7 o'clock right here, same spot tomorrow night. Tuesday night, Lee Thomas Miller, songwriter and producer in Nashville, 7 #1 country hits, 19 top 20 hits. Lee Thomas, EKU alum and Nicholasville native, he will be with us 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday night, we will have the panel discussion on race relations featuring alumni and current students and talking about some of the things that are going on in the world today. Also want to remind you, coming up in November, Deanne Stevens, Lexington TV and radio personality, and Michelle Cole, who is a Hollywood costume designer. She is going to be with us talking about her great career and what she's been doing in costume design. Those are coming up in November on the Alumni Spotlight Series. So again, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate you being here. We hope it's a great homecoming week. It's not the same not having you on campus, but we're going to celebrate anyway, and we'll be here again tomorrow night and throughout the week with a lot of different events. Check out the schedule, homecoming.eku.edu. So until tomorrow night, I'm Dan McBride from the Campus Beautiful saying, go Big E.
you.